I'm Nick Armstrong, and you're watching Dear Fort Collins, a podcast featuring the people that make Fort Collins a wonderful place to live. This series of episodes is all about the election that's happening in November 2025. And we're interviewing all of the different candidates for mayor, city council, and PSD school board. And we want to hear from them in their own words about why they're running, what they care about, and you then can be more informed about who you're voting for when it's time to fill out your ballot. With ranked choice voting, it's really difficult to know sometimes who your candidates are and what order you're going to rank them in. So I hope these series of episodes really help you figure out which candidates best align with your interests and needs. And as we do these interviews, I want you to know that I have given the candidates access to the questions in advance. I try to ask all of the candidates the same questions, or at least give them an opportunity to answer the same questions in the same kind of way. And there's very minimal editing on any of these episodes. So unless there was an errant sneeze or a cat jumping on someone's lap, you're hearing from the candidates in their own words. I do have a quick disclaimer to give you that I serve on the Parks and Recreation Board for the city of Fort Collins, and my opinions on this show are my own. They're not the position of the board or of the city. And I have also advised a number of the candidates about their campaigns, and in some cases have either helped with their campaigns or made a donation here or there. I do my absolute best to make sure that they all get fair treatment, that there aren't any favorites being played, and that also we're asking them the same types of questions and they have an opportunity to answer those in kind. I hope that you enjoy these episodes and that they help you become a more informed voter in the upcoming election. And if you do have any questions, concerns, or comments, please let me know and reach out on the Dear Fort Collins website. I'm always happy to hear from you. And some of the questions that you'll hear me ask of the candidates have been submitted by listeners and watchers just like you. Folks who are fans of the show and want to know more about particular candidates and their positions on particular things. So with that, let's get on with the show. This episode, we have Tricia Canonico, who is a mayoral candidate in this election. And welcome to the show, Tricia. How's your campaign going?
Hi, Nick. Thanks for inviting me today. A campaign is going great. We're really hopping into the heart of campaign season now with just 9 weeks to go until Election Day.
Wow, it's such a fast. When I did it, it was like maybe 6 weeks or so, and you didn't have so much run into it. But this is truly speed walking through the campaign at this moment.
Yeah, things are getting really jazzed up now, I'd say.
So you're one of several mayoral candidates, and is it a slightly different approach than when you ran for city council?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say the biggest difference is that when I first was elected to council, I represent District 3, which is the southeast corner of the city. It was COVID. So everything I did was Zoom. We didn't knock a single door. I just talked to people on the call. So it really is a different approach there. But also, I think I registered to run the very end of November. I don't think I had a website up until sometime in January, and the election was the first Tuesday in April. So a much faster process. There was only 2 candidates. This go round, right now there's 7 of us in the race, and I registered in early April. And here we are in August with still 9 weeks left to go.
That's a long campaign cycle. And when I think right after Susan and I had seen the results, I think I filed the next day. And so that would have been a long 4-year cycle to come
Oh,
around.
that's right. I forgot that you were going to run with all of us this go round
Oh
and
yeah.
prioritize kids, which is great.
That's right. Everybody chooses to get into the race or out of the race for their own reasons. Well, tell us about why you decided to run for mayor.
So I've now been on council for 4 years, if you can do the math, 2025 minus 2021. And I have really enjoyed the work. I've really loved getting involved with the staff, the constituents, and learning so much. Whoever knew I would be so passionate about like the timing of life cycles on our roads, for instance, but also It's just such an incredible opportunity to do more for the community. And I would say what really distinguishes mayor from council roles is we all have an equal vote on council. The mayor is helping to set the agenda, but I think the difference is really the leadership and the outward facing to the community, to the region, to the state. And, even with our current mayor, Jenny Arndt, she has an international role on the ICLEI board. So I think that's where we see the distinction with mayor and council member. And I've really been working in my role as council to take on more leadership roles. I've been serving on the EPA's Local Government Advisory Committee. I'm one of 39 elected officials from across the nation, including the mayor of Minneapolis, the mayor of Newark, and so that's been a really exciting role for me. I'm also our representative to the two county transportation planning organization called the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And through that, I'm now a representative to the Front Range Passenger Rail and really working hard to bring rail to Fort Collins by January 1st, 2029 is the governor's mandate. I've also really dug in on climate action. So I represent Fort Collins now for 3 years on Colorado Communities for Climate Action. And my first leadership role there was vice chair of the legislative committee, then as chair of that committee, and now I'm vice president of the organization. And through that, a lot of action on state and federal climate policy. For instance, last week I testified in front of the EPA on a hearing on the endangerments finding, one of about 200 people who testified there, just representing, again, this organization, which is 46 counties, cities, and towns from across Colorado. And so I've really tried to take on additional leadership roles and to build relationships within our community, with nonprofits, with other organizations, with the county, with the school district, with our state level representatives and our federal delegation. And so I think as mayor, that's more of a role that you see as council. And I think I've really been working towards that. And I'm ready to represent Fort Collins at that level.
What does Fort Collins mean to you specifically?
So I grew up in a military family. I was one of four, and our father was in the Army for 27 years. So for me, that started me in a pathway of always moving. This was my 24th move coming to Colorado in 2010. And I went to 12 different schools growing up. And there was never home. People would talk about their hometown, and I never really had that. Like, for instance, I lived at West Point twice, so for a total of 5 years. And to me, I would say that would be the closest thing to home. I'm not allowed to step foot onto West Point now unaccompanied. So I can't even enter what would be the closest thing to home. So Fort Collins has really become my home. And I feel so extraordinarily lucky that I get to call this home and that my husband Scott and I have been able to raise our three children here. They have been able to stay in one place almost their entire lives. My youngest was born at Poudre Valley Hospital. And it's just really remarkable to have these relationships and to be part of a community and to be able to give back to the community. So for me, when I think about Fort Collins, it's just that word home that was always so elusive in my life. And this is home. This is where we want to be. So just really grateful for that.
What would voters be surprised to learn about you? And if you don't have anything off the top of your head, then what would be your weirdest job?
So I had many, many jobs growing up. Again, I grew up in the military. There wasn't a lot of money. So I always worked a couple jobs at a time. But one summer I worked at Smithfield's Chicken and Barbecue. So half the summer I was spent waitressing, so about 30 hours a week there, and about 30 hours a week working at Jungle Land, which sounds really terrible, but I ran the kiddie rides. I ran kiddie bumper boats. I ran a kiddie train, and I wrecked the train the second day I was at work. Nobody was injured, thank goodness, but now I'm such a huge rail advocate, and I think my experiences with the kiddie rail have nothing to do with that. I will push forward for safety on rails as the Front Range passenger rail moves forward.
What a traumatic experience as a teenager, right? Is that you were running this rail for the
Yeah.
kids?
Yes, the gardeners had left a bucket in the middle of the track, and I missed it. I
Oh
was too
no.
busy drinking my soda and checking out my surroundings, and I wrecked the train. And I just was like, oh my God, I'm getting fired. I'm getting fired. And fortunately, the manager took pity on me, and I lasted the entire summer.
Wow. Well, what a great learning experience. I guarantee you never had another incident like that, right?
Nope. And I never, knock on wood, I've never been in a car accident. I really do feel like I need to knock on wood now.
So, um,
I am
so
now a safe driver.
yeah. Well, speaking of traffic, what do you believe Fort Collins' biggest infrastructure challenge is, and how would you address it?
So, I mean, I think we can look at this in a fun way or a more challenging way. And I think, from what we've seen in the last few months, water infrastructure is something that we really need to focus on. We are seeing, water mains breaking across the city, and luckily, city management and council is on it, and we are investing more money to fix that. But I think we really do need to take a system-wide approach and see what else in that infrastructure for our water system needs to be dealt with as we move forward with this new council starting in January. If we want to be a little more fun with infrastructure, I think it really is alternatives to cars and building out the bike and pedestrian infrastructure and also transit and rail, bringing rail to Fort Collins. But we're really moving forward on that bike and ped infrastructure. I'm so excited that we are going to see the completion of the Siphon Overpass down in my district. And that was part of my platform when I ran for council was really moving forward with that infrastructure. And I think we've made massive improvements. And then the next thing for me that's really exciting is the Harmony Underpass that we're going to see moving forward next year. And then I think the next place we really need to concentrate on is the Northeast. We know that's where we're seeing all the growth and development coming. And I know there's a lot of areas that are lacking in that infrastructure, and kids need to get to school safely without driving. So I would really like to see the city prioritize your area of the city.
Well, you're speaking my language and your checks in the mail, but the other, we've seen the strategic trail plan talk about prioritization, especially in Northeast Fort Collins of the trail network. A lot of that is reliant on CCIP and COGO money, Colorado Go gives, which is specific from the lottery. What other strategies do you have to help support and improve traffic flow and safety, especially knowing that the Northeast in particular is sort of an amalgamation of Larimer County and city interests?
Yeah, so I mean, I think again, this is where those partnerships come in. So we've been really working at the two county level, trying to bring in those CDOT dollars and working with the county. So I'm supportive of their tax measure that will help fund infrastructure and roads that'll be on the ballot this fall. So I hope everybody looks for that one. And I'm sorry, what was the rest of the question there, Nick?
Well, the rest of the question is, are there other firm strategies along the same lines of active modes plan, strategic trails plan, other things that you're looking at in terms of alleviating some of the woes of traffic and congestion, especially in Northeast Fort Collins, but across the city?
Yeah, so we have the prioritization plan too that I think we passed it in the projects list in like 2023 that really looks at infrastructure and also looks at not just the roads, but really the intersections and making those safer, not only for cars, but for every mode of transportation. I will say this again is an area that I've really kind of dug in on. Last summer, I lost my 82-year-old neighbor in a bike accident. He was not killed in Fort Collins, but he was killed on a road, and it just really motivated me to see safer infrastructure for cyclists. And so I worked with Rep. Basenecker. I brought him forward an idea from the previous year for vulnerable road users. Um, that would have had a additional charge on the weight or emissions of your vehicle. That kind of shifted over the legislative session and became a crash prevention enterprise, which would have been a 25-cent surcharge on everyone's car insurance. And 70% of those funds would have gone towards bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and then 30% to wildlife crossings, which we know can be really successful. Unfortunately, that bill failed by one vote in the Senate Finance. So we're looking at bringing that back again, and that will bring funding. We're in a really tight budget um, session right now, and we need ways forward. And this is, an enterprise fund that could be helpful in helping communities advance their bike and ped infrastructure while keeping our wildlife and our car users safe as well.
So it's a really concrete example of advocating for a number of different things. Do you see the city's role in advancing sustainability and climate action along those same lines?
Yeah. We have our 2050, our climate future plan. And I think in conjunction with that, we know that we have the support of the community. We just did a new community survey. And again, climate ranked very highly. Affordable housing, of course, was number one, but climate was right up there. And in 2023, we saw Fort Collins pass a ballot measure that taxes themselves. And it's a quarter cent sales tax, and a quarter of that goes to climate. So I think that really shows that we have that community engagement and that we really want to work on that. And so I think, we have our zero waste, clean energy, and carbon neutral goals all by 2050. And as part of that as well, we need the community to be involved. And I think we're seeing that with the push for composting facilities and people opting to pay on their own for composting, like Compost Queen, which is a great local business. And also, again, the support that we've seen towards moving to that single trash hauler program that we have now with Republic. So I know that the community keeps wanting us to move forward. And again, being part of Colorado Communities for Climate Action, that really helps us come together with other communities across the state to help voice what we want to see for climate. So it's not just us at the local level, it's working with the county again, working with nonprofits, and bringing together all these players and individual community members to keep this moving forward.
Tricia, do you have an idea of how some of the equity components would work together with the Our Climate Future pieces to bring the entire community along with this? Because I know that the equity piece of climate change, there are often folks that suffer the most from just the consequences of these things happening. But the costs of those things have to be bared by other folks in terms of the money and the monetary investment in those. So can you tell me about more cohesive policy measures that you've seen be successful either here or other places?
Yeah, equity is a big part of how we move forward with climate action. We really know that vulnerable populations, like our immigrant communities, are really susceptible to the impacts of climate change. And so I really think there is a focus that we could have in mobile home parks. We have the EPIC Home Loan Program in our city, which is an award-winning program that received $1 million from the Bloomberg Foundation to really get going. As a council, we've worked to expand that program. And one aspect of it, I think, that could really help with our vulnerable populations is expanding it to replace older pre-1976 mobile homes that aren't HUD approved. So they don't meet any energy standards. They just are not safe living. And instead of trying to put a band-aid on them to make them slightly more energy efficient, they're never going to be energy efficient. So I think a better way forward was if we could expand this loan program to maybe offer grants to help replace those homes. I've talked to a manufactured home um, company here in town that already has an existing program that will help properly dispose of those older homes and help fix the lot up for the new home. So I think we could have, again, a great partnership there and help members of our community that really are feeling the impacts of climate change.
Tagging onto that with the nonprofits, what role do you think that the city should play in supporting the arts and nonprofits, and especially programs and organizations that aren't officially part of the city's initiatives?
Yeah, so thank you for Comic Con and inviting me to give the proclamation there. I just thought it was really amazing to see so many people coming together and involved in something that's really important to them and the city's involvement there. We have city spaces that can be used for events like yours. I also attended the Colorado Turkish Festival this weekend, and to see our city park hosting the event, to see the city's concert trailer being used there, and just all the people out enjoying themselves and being part of it. So art is community to me. Eileen May, who is our cultural director, is amazing. And I think she has so many great ideas, and I can't wait to see those all unleashed. I'm really excited about the Foco Pop, and I think we have Cirque Flip Fabrique on September 13th and seeing that out there in action. But I think we are a convener. I think we can help uplift the arts. And I think we also need to make it easier. I hear from a lot of different members of the community that sometimes the permitting for special events can be difficult to obtain, that you have to reach out to so many departments. So I would like us to, as a new council, to look into that, how we can streamline that process. Um, and then, for fun, we always have that money available for the arts, and things are challenging with budgets right now. And how can we keep that amount there and keep the city's involvement in the arts? It's just so important to who we are as a city and a community.
Talking about that, knowing that the city is facing budget tightening at least, and knowing that a lot of the sales tax comes in from local shopping, businesses support, and things like that, tourism. What would you say in terms of your policies or processes or things that you'd like to see to help support the small business community in Northern Colorado?
I think it's really the small businesses that are the heart and soul of our city. When you go out in Old Town, you want to eat in one of our local restaurants. You want to go to one of our music venues. And so I think we really need to be cognizant of how we help those local businesses. We have the multicultural business, shoot, I'm not going to say it right, business office right now that will help small businesses get off the ground. We have NoCo Biz Connect, that again is another way to help our small businesses. And I would also like us to see, and I've brought this up in a work session, like a food business incubator accelerator, to see maybe, like Taco Stop, I think is such a great example. We've seen that business go from a food truck to now being named as one of USA Today's top 100 restaurants in the country. How do we help more businesses grow like that? And I think the city has some underused facilities potentially, and we've got expertise to help these businesses grow. So I think it's really important that we do that. Um, for larger businesses too, our primary employers, how do we attract those sectors that we think Fort Collins would be a great home for them, that we have that educated, skilled workforce that can do those jobs. And so I think we really need to be very strategic in how we go about that. And I think we've got a great economic health office that's really working on that.
Do you see the economic development as an issue that's closely tied to the affordable housing situation in Fort Collins?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think when we really get down to it, housing's at the center of everything. It's hard to live in a community, to work in a community where you can't live. And we're seeing other communities grow. Um, and, a lot of our employees here in Fort Collins can't afford to live in Fort Collins. So then we aren't getting that sales tax revenue here. We aren't able to keep up enrollment in our neighborhood schools. And I think those neighborhood schools are something that really attract people to our area. I know that for us, that was a big draw. We wanted to live somewhere where our kids could walk to all three schools. And everybody wants that community that's built up around schools. So I do think it's all tied together. Like that 15-minute community concept, it brings it all together. Transportation, housing, jobs, small businesses. And so I'm really excited that our council has been pushing hard on that for optimizing our neighborhood centers and really looking at our transportation network to make it easier for people to get around.
Knowing that there's the ability for city council to set its own priority list, and sometimes those are wide and expansive, or sometimes they're pretty narrow. What's something that you would advocate for as a first project or the highest priority project that you would like to tackle first if elected?
Um, again, I think it's really that. It's how do we keep looking at how we make housing affordable? And I think there are a lot of strategies that we can be employing, but I think there's more room for improvement in our land use code, the LDC. And I think we really need to look at smaller lots and smaller houses and a diversity of housing types. If we look to Portland, which is one of the cities that's doing it best, bringing in that missing middle, those are some of the strategies they've taken. And, I look at cottage courts, and I think there's such a great example of a different type of housing that we don't really have in Fort Collins that have been really attractive to younger professionals and to older residents who it's a commonality that they want that smaller house that they can afford and have that community built around them. I had the chance yesterday to go out and tour Bloom, a new development that's just really getting settled in Northeast Fort Collins. And they have a product there where it's a cottage, a smaller house on about a 1,800 square foot lot. And then they have a duplex garage behind them, and they're now doing ADUs above them. And I know people are concerned with density, but I invite everyone to go out and look at that. I mean, it's so livable the way it's designed. And I think we can have density and keep all the things that we like about Fort Collins. So I suggest people go out and check that out.
Making Fort Collins a communal and friendly place to live for all communities is an important aspect of your campaign. What is your understanding of the needs of LGBTQIA plus residents and visitors?
I really think they want to know they're safe, that they're included, that they are valued, and they need fairness in employment and opportunities as well. And we need a workforce that reflects them. I think the city's really done some really great work, but I think we still need to look at our workforce and is it reflective of who our community really is? Um, And we should have those voices at the table as well. Our city needs to be representative of who we are. And so I'd like to see more LGBTQ community members given a voice, given a spot at the table on boards and just in leadership.
Tricia, are there examples of beyond boards and commissions for LGBTQ voices to get involved in the community or things that you see are already working in the community?
Yeah, CSU is really doing a fascinating project called the Queer Memory Project, where they're looking at history of queer people throughout northern Colorado. And I think that's an amazing project and really gives a voice to this community. A couple years ago at the Museum of Discovery, we had the Human Library, where you could check out a human and learn their stories and really see the diversity in our community and hear lived experiences. And so I think that could be a great collaboration with the Museum of Discovery and the university. So again, that collaboration, working together, partnership, I think that's what local government is all about.
Knowing that at the last couple of city council meetings, we've been hearing advocacy for utilizing city funds, as you said, the shrinking sales tax dollars for things across the board and the leftovers from CCIP to things like affordable housing. What do you think that the city's mandate should be for things like that when it comes to prioritizing spending across the board? Obviously, affordable housing is one category. You mentioned climate resiliency in another space as well. Are there aspects that look to you as more feasible as solutions and better investments of our limited sales tax dollars than others?
So I don't like no cutting programs. I mean, I think we can scale things, but I also think we just need to look at being scrappier right now. How do we do things smarter that don't really take more dollars? Like, how do we use technology to streamline, say, the development process? And so I think that's one thing we can really be looking at and just really, um, like, again, I think this is where land use code can come into the mix. We just had a work session on our commercial corridors, and we're looking at parking minimums and abandoning them potentially in along the TOD corridor, but perhaps across the city. I know in Denver, when they got rid of their parking minimums, they saved 650 hours annually in staff time. So, how do we marry all of these policies and programs together so that we can save money, but we can keep the jobs in place and it's not impactful on our communities? So, along with that, like, you know, Fort Collins as a world-class city was a slogan for a long time. I think we've kind of moved away from that, but I don't know that all of our policies have. And, we're used to close to perfection here. But what if instead of mowing our parks every week, we mowed them every week and a half? So I think there are some compromises we can make as a community that won't really impact the level of service that we're accustomed to. So I think I would really like to see us as a city look towards those small shifts first. And I know there are things that we're looking at in the budget. And it is too, tonight we're talking about the budget and how we move forward and shifting the system that we use for budgeting. But I think it's really taking a hard look at where money is going and where can we save the taxpayer some revenue to use on the things that they want to see move forward.
Knowing that there are so many different competing priorities, and this is our first major election using ranked choice voting, how do you plan to appeal to voters who might align with you on some issues and not on others? And what's your overall strategy for connecting with folks who might not choose you as their first choice?
Well, I get out and I talk to people. This weekend was Tour de Fat, one of the premier events in Fort Collins. And I just got out and had so many conversations with people. And I think, when you get right down to it, what voters really want is a well-run city. and to know that they're heard. So that's what I did at Fat Tire. And then I went and I volunteered at New Belgium for 3 hours pouring beer. Um, Wow, what a great event that is. I mean, it's so representative of who we are as a community. But just getting out and talking to different people, and, there's always ways to connect. It's building those relationships, it's finding something that you have in common. So I would say, we've got some really great candidates that I'm running against. I'm not going to be everyone's first choice, and we know it. But it's my country music song. If I can't be your number one, I want to be your number two. And so, I've had a few people who've said well, I like so and so, and they want to shut the conversation down. And I was like, well, this is ranked choice voting. You get to, maybe chocolate's your favorite, but then you also get to choose if you want a little bit of strawberry ice cream and just a tiny bit of vanilla or vice versa. So it is really, when I say that to people, I'm like, oh, you're right. I have to think about who's my number two, who's my number three. And I think it's really enlightening for people to recognize that this isn't so binary as it is in a regular election, and they have more choices. And I think with that, we'll also see, sometimes there's rancor in elections. I think we've been very fortunate that that's not really the MO in Fort Collins, but who knows what the future holds. And I think ranked choice voting is really going to help us keep that out of our local politics. Um, I had the opportunity a few months ago when I was in DC to talk with a ranked choice voting um, expert, and he's from Australia, where they've always used ranked choice voting. And it's really the collaborative candidates that win elections. And I think that holds true here. And I think it's a great way for our city to move because that's who we are. We're kind, we're collaborative, and we just want what's best for the community. So,
Are there
all for ranked
any
choice.
I'm all for that. And it's reminiscent of the District 4 race not too long ago, which was not RCV, where there were so many different candidates that were all uniquely qualified, and nobody was campaigning negatively, which was just really refreshing.
Yeah.
Um, are there any voter groups or views that you're intentionally not seeking to court or be associated with?
In general, I'm happy to work with anyone, talk to anyone, hear anyone's views. But again, this is Fort Collins. We're civil, we're kind. So anyone who's um, has hate at the heart of their politics or divisive or wants to tear people down, um, I find that very unattractive. And I don't know that I could really be a great representative for anyone who thinks that way. Fortunately, I'm not really coming across anyone that's like that who I've talked to who voters in Fort Collins. So again, it's Fort Collins. We're awesome, right?
Uh, no argument for me. Do you consider who do you consider a role model in public service who you look up to, and what have you learned from them?
So I am really honored. Tomorrow night, I'll be named as one of BizWest's Women of Distinction for the government, utilities, and energy sector. So this was a question on their questionnaire for the awardees. And I really thought about it. And it's not one individual person. It is the women who are leading Fort Collins. Again, we are a remarkable city with our female leadership. If you look across every sector, business, nonprofit, government, schools, university, we have some remarkable women leaders who have been laying the path. I know that when Kristen Stevens in 2015 was elected to city council, she was the lone woman on council. When I came on, we had a man who was the city manager. Now we have a woman. And, our municipal judge is a woman, our city attorney is a woman, our mayor is a woman. It is remarkable to live in a city that is so representative of my gender. And so I look to them for all the doors that they broke down and just it's amazing that I get to live in the city and get to see how they lead. And so I look up to all of them and I toast them all for what they've done and where they've brought Fort Collins.
Along those same lines, if you could have any superpower to help your community, what would it be and why?
Um, Yeah, I would, I thought about this. Housing. Housing's a big one. If I could wave a magic wand and have the right housing that everyone needs, that would be great. But then I also think, one of the reasons I really got into politics was climate change. We are seeing the impacts of our on climate on our community. Thank goodness for this rain this week to tamp down those fires. But we're now looking on the other side of our state, the fourth largest fire in our state's history. We know all the issues this brings with water, with the hotter weather, the impact on vulnerable residents. So if I could wave a magic wand and bring us back to our former regular weather patterns, that's what I would do.
Is there any one piece of advice that you've received but you didn't follow and now you wish you had?
You know what? I am grateful for every mistake I've ever made. Not fun in the moment, but it helps create who you are, right? We all learn from our mistakes. So I can't say that there's any piece of advice that I wish I'd taken because I wouldn't be who I am and where I'm at if I hadn't made those mistakes that potentially could have been avoided if I had taken that good advice. So no, I don't have any. I like my mistakes.
I think that's a wonderful thing to have that perspective on. What do you think Fort Collins will look like 20 years from now?
I think that magic wand is going to kind of get used for housing. And we are going to be still a remarkable place to call home, but we will have figured out our housing crisis. And we will have those 15-minute communities, and we will have rail. We will have the bike infrastructure we want to see. And I hope we just keep moving towards a bright future, which I think is totally feasible and possible.
Tricia, it's time for the interview with the rapid fire questions. And just say whatever's on the top of your head. No wrong answers here. So we'll start off with favorite coffee shop,
Harbingers off of Harmony.
favorite brewery,
Oh, that one's hard, but I will say Construct because I can ride my bike there, and I'm pretty passionate about riding my bike places.
favorite park,
Twin Silo, it's kind of across the street, and it really is an awesome park.
Horsetooth hike, or Pooter Trail bike ride.
Okay, that depends on how much time I have. Love to hop on my bike and hop on the Pooter Trail because I can just go right out my door and kind of do that. Horsetooth, I need a little more time in my day to get all the way across town, but I love a hike at Horsetooth as well.
What's your favorite book right now?
Okay, so I don't usually have favorites, but I just picked this up and I'm really excited about this one. It's called Amplify and it's by Adam Met, who is a member of the band AJR. And he is a PhD in human rights law. And he has started a climate nonprofit. And this is about how to use the power of connection to engage, take action, and build a better world. So, what could be a better topic? So, I'm excited to dig into that one.
That's incredible. And I assume you know about Seth Godin's Climate Almanac already?
I don't.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I have a copy that I'm going to have to lend to you.
Okay. I'm writing it
Along those same
down.
lines. Um, Somebody's getting a hold of you. Do you prefer phone call, text, or email?
Not email. I'll take either or on phone or text.
Would you consider yourself an early bird or a night owl?
I'm actually both. I'm not a big sleeper. So last night I was up till about midnight and I was up at 5:30. So
Do you have a favorite nonprofit in town?
I do the Family Center. I served on the board there and they're just doing such tremendous work.
Yeah, tell us about their work.
So they work with our immigrant community, they work with children, they work with mobile home parks, trying to give that community a voice. And I'm just in awe of the work they do. Gloria Cat is their executive director. They're being hit hard with budget cuts right now. And if you want to support a nonprofit in town, the Family Center, that's a good one.
If you had to describe Fort Collins in one word, what would it be?
Home.
If you could snap your fingers and change one thing about Fort Collins, what would it be?
Less hot in the summer. Doesn't apply this week, but like last week, definitely. Yeah. Summers are a little hot for me.
And if you weren't running for office, what would you be doing this year?
I would still be really engaged in community. I started several fundraisers in the community, um, and I would be doing that. I'd be working at nonprofits as a volunteer, and I might make it to the gym a little bit more if I weren't running for mayor.
When I ran, I think I walked 10 miles a day. I wore out a pair of boots. That was for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of walking, a little less strength training right now.
My health app's like, what are you still alive? Is there it's just walking less. Is there anything else that you'd like the listener to know about you or your campaign?
Yeah, I want everyone to know that I am happy to talk to anyone. I am call me, text me. You can reach out by email. I will answer it. But engage, get involved. If you want to volunteer, I'm always looking for volunteers. If you want to host a yard sign, they would like homes as well. And feel free to reach out to Tricia for foco.com, and that's Tricia and Forfoco.
Okay, I was just about to ask where we can learn more about your campaign, and it's on the website.
On the website.
Okay. Well, Tricia, thank you so much for joining us on Dear Fort Collins. I hope it was fun.
It was great fun. Thank you. Once we finally got my camera issues worked out. Thanks for bearing with me. Never had that happen before.
I'm glad we worked out a solution for it. It was fun hanging out with you in the intermediary, and always a wonderful time to chat with you. So
thanks for troubleshooting with me.
Well, we'll hope to see you next time on Dear Fort Collins for more candidate interviews.